Welcome to the Sunrise on the Reaping review. I'm going to give my opinions about the book, what I liked, what I disliked, and everything that went on in the 50th Hunger Games. So please subscribe, and we're going to begin. Alright, my first impressions of the book. It was a highly anticipated book of 2025, first of all, and I was very excited to read another Hunger Games book. And as I have the entire series plus the prequel book, and also I've seen each of the movies, and also I can't wait to see the movie adaptation for Sunrise on the Reaping next November. So very, very exciting. So looking at the book cover behind me, it is of a mockingjay and a snake. So very similar to what the previous book cover had for Balance on vs. Snakes. Anyways, this is actually a flint striker that Hamish receives from Lenore in chapter 1. So yes. And the purple background really brings out the gold color. And purple is of royalty, I think. I'm not sure about that, but you can look up the significance of purple and what it represents. I also made chapter spoilers if you want to check that out after this review video, but this is me just ranting about the book. Okay, so getting into the book, I knew that it was going to be about the 50th Hunger Games. This was Hamish's games, and the stakes here is that, since it's the second Quarrel Quell, there are going to be twice the amount of tributes going into the arena. And that is what happened. And while I was reading each chapter, I was anticipating some type of cliffhanger at the end. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is so surprising. And this is how Hamish's Hunger Games turned out, like, leading up to and actually inside the games. It was so amazing. I was like, the build up was definitely there. Reading in his point of view gave me like clear insight of what he was going through, and as a 16-year-old boy, and what he was going through. So he lived in the Seam District 12, which is the poorest area. Wow, what he has done to survive. He was a bootlegger but he did it for a living to keep the family going. His father died in a coal mining fire. There are rumors that it wasn't an accident, and in the book it said that some thought he died sabotaging the mines. Others thought that his crew were targeted by the Capitol for being a pack of troublemakers. His last name, Abernathy, was like rebellion. That really foreshadows what Hamish eventually does in the future. When it comes to the characters, so overall, I do like Hamish as a character. I feel like if I was in his shoes, I would be like, oh my gosh, trying to get myself out of danger, first of all, and wow, like really, I can't believe that he went through all of that. I couldn't imagine being in his situation. And well, the fact that he was not reaped, he was just replaced, because the original tribute who was reaped was Woodbine Chance. He ran away, he got shot. Hamish was just drawn into it, and like, yeah, it felt very rigged. So the other tributes were Maisie, Wyatt, and Luella. So Maisie, okay, I thought Maisie was gonna be this nice girl, like you were gonna like her and all, but I was like, I really don't like her because other than she's mean, I'm like, okay, I get that she can stand up for herself. She's not defenseless, okay, I get that, but she's such a bully. She's such a bully. That's the best way I can put it. And that's just awful. And even the later chapters, I was like, she has been pulling off an act of some sort and all that stuff. Like, try to get on their side, but stab them in the back later in the arena. But I see her character arc and how she actually was not as bad. So it was me just judging her at the beginning, and I was like, eventually I'm gonna grow to like her. I kind of like her. I think I like her rebellious side when it comes to like we're going to go against capital, we're going to paint our own poster and all that stuff, which happens later in the book, like about chapter 20, 21, maybe. So yeah, so Maisley was alright. The way Maisley died, it was horrifying. It was Wyatt. There wasn't much to him. He was like an odds maker, who determines the odds of what people's chances are. I like that logic side of him, and I wish I got to know him more than just like, okay, he's like part of a betting family, and like, you know, and I don't know, I was just expecting a little bit more, but the fact that he died in early on in the 50th Hunger Games in the bloodbath, that was like horrifying. And I think it would have been a lot worse actually seeing it on the page of been like, oh my gosh. It would have felt like the first book of the Hunger Games. I'm like, oh my gosh. But like he was alright. He was alright. And then Luella, Haymitch's sweetheart, and I liked her. She was alright. And the fact that she died in chapter 6, after the chariot accident, she flew out, and that was disturbing all by itself. I was like, and whenever I'm reading books, I tend to like picture the events going on, and I was like that was like one of the most disturbing things that I've ever read, but it was a build up to what was going to eventually happen. And the fact that Luella had a stunt double, oh my gosh. I hated the stunt double just because it wasn't Luella, and I couldn't call her Lulu. I just kept on calling her fake Luella. Like, oh my gosh. And it was worse because it reminded me of Peeta, like, how he was hijacked and all and controlled by the Capitol. Like, this is exactly what it is. It's like a parallel between Katniss and Peeta, like 25 years later. I'm like, oh my gosh. Anyways, I liked Luella overall. Fake Lulu, not so much. So we get to Plutarch. Plutarch is this cameras man who is like in charge of this propaganda for District 12. I like this character. There's times that I definitely didn't want to trust him either, like Haymitch. So kind of skeptical about Plutarch, but he was a good character. He was portrayed well. Lenore Dove, Haymitch's girlfriend. So I heard about it like years ago and all that stuff, but I really wanted to see how it was going to play out in the book, and it was done really well. It was. And Lenore, like, I see that she has similarities to Lucy Gray, but also like she stands out in her own way. And wow, she's such a mystery. Like, really, she's such a mystery. And I'm going to talk about the ending towards the end of the video. But ooh, this leads me to President Snow. Coriolanus Snow. Snow lands on top. His nice little slogan. Anyway, Snow is just so manipulative, and we see that in the chapters that he appears. So the first time we actually see him is page 79. Sorry that I remember the page number. But he, oh my gosh, his presence itself is just a force to be reckoned with. Like when Haymitch like confronted President Snow, is like, oh my gosh, did I get his reaction? I don't know exactly if I did, but I feel like, okay. Oh, I just said in my notes, Haymitch is confronted by President Snow, and he laid Luella down in front of President Snow. Like, man, I'm like, and Snow has his ways, and like he knows what he's doing, and he's going to do whatever it takes to win, like overall. And whenever I was reading about it, like in chapter 9, oh my gosh, no, he just knows what he's doing. It's like he has eyes from the back of his head, and I'm like, what the world? Like that's crazy. And yeah, that's insane. President Snow, like, and he's like, because he was throwing up because he had drank poison like probably the previous night or so, and like now he's like, oh my gosh, I need some milk. And it's so funny whenever Haymitch just drinks all the milk, and like it just really foreshadows what Snow's going to do. And the fact that Snow is like, if you don't do what I say, I'm gonna punish you. I'm gonna punish you like even more than just a quick death. And he does that in so many ways. I want to take a minute to point out what makes Sunrise on the Reaping unique out of every other book that I've read before. So, first of all, Susan Collins is so good and just subtly foreshadowing certain things that are going to happen later in the book. And she also leaves it open-ended where it is left for the reader's interpretation and predictions. I was trying to follow along with the story and see if I could catch things before it actually happens. I think it happened a few times while reading the book. But anyways, there were also a lot of Easter eggs that I didn't want to miss because it could either been in one of the books from the main series or the prequel book, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And there were a lot. So that's why I took plenty of notes, annotating. I don't call it annotated, but I'm diving deeper into Sunrise on the Reaping. So that's my nice acknowledgments for Sunrise on the Reaping. So moving on to the themes. Propaganda plays a big role in the story. It's pretty much the center of the book, really. And the people who has power inside the Capitol uses propaganda to have their audience, which is the Capitol citizens and district people, believe what they say. And what stood out a lot was no peace. If there's no peace, then there's no capital. If there's no peace, there's no prosperity, no peace. There's a cause. If there's no peace, then the effects is there's no security and all that. Oh, now it's coming in my head. And also, this propaganda is so important because it shapes the narrative of how something is perceived. And we know that the Capitol is capable of making the narrative to shape their image and have the people watching it to believe in it. Another theme in there is obviously rebellion, rising up against a totalitarian government. There were a lot of hints of rebellion and trying to take action. And the characters were even doing some rebellious acts before entering the arena and while the games were going on. So this was paving the way. into the revolution to take down the Capitol. This book paved the way for the Hunger Games series to exist. So now let's talk about my favorite part of the story, which is obviously the games. So the 50th Hunger Games, oh my gosh, is such a joy to read about it and relive it as if I were actually there. In Haymitch's point of view, it was pretty interesting. The fact that he just got the bag and left and fend for himself. He had reasons to do so. But I'm like, man, I would do the same thing personally, because I wouldn't want to be killed in a bloodbath filled with people who are better than me. Like, so yeah, being on the run is the best thing to do. And then I want to say how Haymitch managed to survive. Like, man, I don't think I would have survived. And like, looking at the signs, he used the environment to his advantage, and that really helps from him being from District 12 and also being in the meadow, just knowing things and people who knew about nature. That really benefited Haymitch. Something that he has to get back to. He had to get back to his family. He had to get back to his girlfriend. He has a home he has to go back to. I liked the alliances that Haymitch had with Ampert and Maisily. They were both heartbreaking whenever those two died unexpectedly, and it was like literally meant for them. The first one with Ampert, it was so disturbing. The fact that squirrel mutts ate him alive and left his bones. It was just disgusting. It was like disgusting. I was like, it's like as if I was really there. Just putting myself into Haymitch's shoes. Like, if I were Haymitch, I would be feeling the same thing. And also Maisily's death. Oh my gosh, the flamingo birds like attacking her. That was insane. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, are you kidding me? And this was like their punishment. And I'm like, wow. I was still able to read the book, but that's just not an easy thing to get over. And whenever Haymitch was in the final two, he was going against Silka, who was the District 1 girl. Oh my gosh, the attack, they were like going at it one-on-one, an eye for an eye. Well, say a gut for an eye. Yeah, a gut for an eye, and oh my gosh, it was crazy. And I knew Haymitch was going to win because he had the force field that was behind him to his advantage. And the fact that he was going to blow himself up with the entire arena was crazy. I'm like, no, Victor. Okay, I was not really expecting him to blow out the arena. Or maybe at least after, you know? I don't, or just, I don't know. I don't know what to say. But I'm glad he was alive. But yeah, I'm glad that he was alive. But, whew, wow. The victor's ceremony, everything just did not turn out the way Haymitch expected it to. Mags and Wiress were punished for Haymitch's actions, and it was just terrible because all I could think about was Snow. Snow did this. He wanted to make an example out of Haymitch, and yeah, it was crazy. Like, obviously, I don't like President Snow and the dictator that he has become, but seeing that there is a threat that is going to do whatever he can to win at any cost is just, it's so cold. And also, man, when Haymitch went home finally, it wasn't like, okay, he went home and was all happy. His house was on fire. His mother and younger brother were in there alive. It was so crazy. And the fact that Snow did it. Snow didn't. We know Snow did it. And it's just so crazy. And Haymitch just going on this downward spiral. Like, okay, it hit there, but wait till you get rock bottom. Okay, so he reunites with Lenore Dove. Wonderful reunion in the meadow. They're together. And they're going to be together forever. But the gumdrops that Lenore eats, they're bloody red. And when Haymitch realizes he's too late. He not only lost his mother, his younger brother, but he also lost his girlfriend. And Haymitch just hit rock bottom. He sent everyone away. He isolated himself in the Victor's village, and oh my gosh. And what he has to deal with for the next 24 years, it's just awful. Year after year, now that he's a Victor, he has to train one male and one female to go in the arena to fend for their lives. There wasn't really much I didn't like about the book, to be honest. It was a nice read. It took me about a week to finish the book. And that was pretty good. I read Hunger Games books pretty fast, except for that one. Some were, the Sunburst and Snakes one. That wasn't an easy read, but maybe there were just some small things that I didn't like in the book, but at times it kind of felt slow. That I was at a point I was like, wait, how many pages are there left? Okay, I know there are 27 chapters, but how many pages are left? I'm like, when am I going to get to the next chapter? I kind of felt impatient in a way. So, yeah. I was excited, but I was also impatient. I'll say this was the better prequel book, in my opinion. And, the build-up was really great. It was really great. There might have been parts that, can we get to the point? But other than that, the overall message that Collins was trying to portray was executed wonderfully. I loved the foreshadowing. And also what stood out, oh my gosh, I almost forgot about this. What also stood out in the story was the poems, and yeah, what's the poems? I was like, that really foreshadowed what was going to happen to Haymitch at the end of the story. I was like, oh my gosh, the poems. The Raven. I read The Raven before in my English 3 class in my junior year. And I was like, oh my gosh. At first, when I first read The Raven, I was like, I kind of understand it, but I'm like, do I really? But reading it again, I have a better understanding of what it's about and how much, and how much meaning it has. And, something you can't take for granted, really. And a lot of the poems really foreshadowed Haymitch's downfall at the end of the story. And I'll just say, I just knew how the story was going to end. I just wanted to read the execution and how it really turned out. So once again, this was a highly anticipated book of 2025. I did enjoy reading Sunrise on a Reaping. If I were to give a 1 to 5 rating, I think I just give it 5 stars because I enjoy it. I love the Hunger Games. Hunger Games is my favorite series of all time. And this prequel book was amazing. And if I had to rank it, I have all 5 of them really quick. I'm going to rank them by the best, the worst book in my opinion. So at number 5, skip number 5. We got The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I believe this was the worst book because, okay, so the build up was great. I love the build up. I love the pacing and all. But once the Hunger Games was over, I was like, it was slowing down a lot, and I was like, it's really hard for me to just keep reading it. And I stopped at chapter 27. I was like, ugh. And then when I picked it up again, I was 3 chapters left, and it was like vacation, and that's when I finished it. I'm like, it really dragged for me. So that's my least favorite. Number 4, I just gotta say Mockingjay. Okay, so Mockingjay, it was alright. I read this book like 3 years ago. Still, oh wait, oh well, I first read this book 3 years ago. I got this box like Christmas 2021 and read the books. Well, the series in like about 2 months. So yeah, but this one, it just didn't feel too Hunger Games vibes. It was just like, meh. I did like parts of the story. So number 3, okay, I'm gonna say Catching Fire. I really like Catching Fire, but I'm like, the reason why it's not my favorite is I think there's parts in the book. Oh yes, it was the build up in the second book was a little slow at first, and I was like, not only about get to the Hunger Games, but the beginning just threw me off, and I was like, oh, and I was like thinking of the movies as well. So yeah. And then number 2, I would have to say Sunrise on the Reaping. Love this book. Hamage's point of view. What makes this number 2 instead of number 1 is the fact that it's just not number 1. Okay, we just gotta put this. This is just gonna be number 2. Okay, it's just second best. And then number 1 is obviously The Hunger Games. I watched this countless of times. I love this book. This is what started it all. Love it so much. I'm like, yes, thank you for the first Hunger Games book, even though it was like the 74th Hunger Games, you know? And that is my Sunrise of the Reaping review. So comment below what you enjoyed about book, maybe what you didn't like, or maybe your favorite book of the Hunger Games. Or if you watched the movies, which Hunger Games movie is your favorite? And thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.